Hello, everybody. My name is Carrie Cooper. I'm Dean of University Libraries, and it's really nice to have all of you here with us today. This Scope series has been the brainchild of Kelvin Ramsey, member of our board, who is helping us highlight really important collections that we have. And we usually do it the night before our board meets. And so it's also an extra treat and extra education for people that serve on our board of directors. I want to thank Rich Walker for bringing his collection and recognizing the importance of institutional memory and understanding and recognizing that this was the place for his photographs and to talk about his photographs. So we really appreciate that. I also thought it might be good to remind everybody here, because I see some faces that aren't here often, that this library is not just for our students, it's also for alumni and people in the community, and everything that's out on the shelves is available for anybody to check out. Now, you can't walk into special collections and take home Thomas Jefferson's letter, right? But you can, there's so many books that are on the shelves, and we want them to be used. And so we have a large collection. We're happy to share it with people in our community. And we also have visitor parking right behind the building. It's the same passport app that you use in Colonial Williamsburg. And the last thing I wanted to say to this group is on May 14th, which is a Wednesday, it's graduation week, we are going to have a Sons of Liberty event on the lawn of the historic campus right in front of the president's home, where Thomas Jefferson and James Madison are the interpreters from CW are gonna talk. And they're gonna put on a program, and we're gonna have some primary resource materials, some letters from Jefferson and Madison on display inside of the Wren building on that same night. Kind of like a picnic on the lawn from 5 to 7. Students can do selfies with Madison and Jefferson right before graduation, and people in the community can come I hope it's a beautiful night like it is tonight, and people can picnic. We thought it'd be a nice way to kind of spend some time outside before the heat arrives. So this is and if it goes well and we have a good crowd and people like it, we're thinking we'll do that several times in the 25-26 academic year. So this is us just testing an idea. We realize our students love it when the interpreters are on the campus, and that doesn't happen very often. When we had Lafayette's diploma on display in special collections, you should have seen, it was like there was a star in the house. The students chased him from the front door all the way here. So our students really love this place and the history that is in this place. So giving them more access to some of those things, we think is a really nice idea. So we hope you'll join us too. And Kelvin, I'm going to turn it over to you.
So it's my pleasure to introduce Rich Walker. We are both graduates of the class of 1979 and geology majors. And what he's going to talk about this evening is the side of Rich that I only knew peripherally until after we were both graduates, and then he started sharing his photographs with us. So a little bit of a bio for Rich. He got his bachelor's here, of course, in geology. He went on to get a Master of Science and PhD in Earth and Space Sciences from the State University of New York at Stony Brook. He is a distinguished university professor of geology at the University of Maryland. He joined Maryland in 1990 as assistant professor, and he served as the chair of the Department of Geology from 2015 to 2021. He's received a lot of awards, including the University of Maryland Kirwan Faculty Research and Scholarship Prize and the Geochemical Society Clark Medal. He was recognized as one of the 250 most cited researchers in the field of geosciences between 1988 and 2008. He's published a ton of articles, mentored both undergrad and graduate and postdoctoral students. And to get this right, so that you'll really understand his field of research, which has nothing to do with what he's talking about tonight. He's giving a talk tomorrow at noon in the geology department on his research. And this is what it says, is that Dr. Walker utilizes radiogenic isotopes and trace elements to conduct research in several areas of geo and cosmochemistry, including the formation and crystallization histories of early solar system planetesimals and accretional and differentiation histories of the Earth, Moon, and Mars, and the chemical evolution of Earth's mantle and crust. Not all of that tomorrow. So if you'd like to hear more from Rich tomorrow, is join at McLaughlin Street in the geology department for that. And with that, I will turn it over to Rich.
Okay, is the mic working? You can hear me? Yeah. Okay. Wait, I have to start my clock because I dare not go over. I've been given, what, 60 minutes? No, 35, something on that order. Okay, so this little project came about kind of right at the beginning of COVID. So Kelvin said, gee, the library might want some of your photographs digitized. So I started doing it, and 2,800 digitized photographs later, here we are. So the library has the 2,800 digitized photographs. I'm not sure what they've done with them up to this point. At some point, they're going to make them accessible to the public. But in the meantime, if you want 2,800 digitized photos, send me an email and I can provide you with a link so that you can spend 45 minutes of downloading time downloading the photographs. Okay, go. That's okay. So, how did I end up at William and Mary? That's question number one. Now you may proceed. I have been coming to Williamsburg since 1960. This is me with my Williamsburg hat in 1960. Notice the tail fin on that car. And so I grew up in northern Maryland, and one of our favorite vacation locations was Colonial Williamsburg. And, you know, to be honest, there wasn't much else in Williamsburg in the 1960s other than Colonial Williamsburg. So we would come down maybe once a year or every other year. We would stay at the Motor Inn, which most of you have no idea what the Motor Inn is. If you want to see it, there's one last vestigial building of the Motor Inn that I saw today over behind the visitor center. So it was the place you stayed if you came to Williamsburg. It had a gigantic cafeteria associated with it. And so the Walker family would have breakfast and most dinners at the cafeteria, and it was just the most glorious place. So at an early age, I started really enjoying coming to Williamsburg. Next slide. And of course, it was a great place to bring your kids. You could lock them up and come back a few hours later. Do they still have these? Okay. So
They don't let you put your head in them anymore, though.
I guess that's viewed as cruel. Next. So as time passed, I became increasingly self-satisfied with my trip to Williamsburg. And got to the stage, you know, junior year in high school, where are you going to apply to college? And I thought Williamsburg was pretty nice, and William and Mary happened to be in Williamsburg. And my parents said, don't go to University of Maryland because it's a lousy school. Of course, that's where I've been for the last 35 years, but, and so I applied to William and Mary, and I applied to Virginia Tech. And spring break, I guess, my senior year, I had been accepted, strangely, at both places. And I came here probably in April, and it was like a 75-degree day, and there were girls in bikinis out in the sunken gardens, and it was great. And then we drove over to Blacksburg, and it was snowing. And so that was it. I had made my decision, and it was a good decision. Next slide. So there I am. I found my way to Hunt Hall in the fall of 1975. And Hunt Hall is still there. I shared a hall with Bob Kerouac from the same year. He's sitting there. And I guess the rest is history. So at this point, I was interested in photography, so I went and visited Flat Hat recruitment day and yearbook recruitment day, and both said, yeah, you can take pictures for us, but you're a freshman, so you're going to get lousy assignments, which I did, but I persisted. Next. So a few pictures of dormitory living. Go ahead. So this was my freshman year roommate, Fritz Knapp. He told me he came from Long Island. I had no idea where that was. And then he told me it was east of New York City, and I thought, that's the ocean. And eventually he showed me on a map that there was this island off the east coast of New York City, and in fact I spent, 6 years there in graduate school. Next slide. So my floor on Hunt Hall was eccentric, and this just have a few pictures to convince you of that. This was our intramural soccer team, I think it was. And Bob, do you remember this event? Oh, no. He wasn't there. So it was actually the guy who's hanging out naked whose idea this was. And this did get published in the Flat Hat, and it really upset our area coordinator. And then no one knew who it was or how it happened. So next slide. And so these are not posed pictures. This was one of the guys on our floor. Somebody filled his room with newspaper. I did not plant the condemned sign in the back. And this is an unposed picture. This is actually the same guy that was hanging naked out the building. The only thing that I added to this picture was the flat hat to cover his room. Next slide. So after freshman year, we enjoyed sophomore and junior years abroad. This was the James Blair Terrace dormitory suite. There were 2 buildings. Most recently, it's been knocked down, so you can't visit it anymore. I think it was a 1930s era building that was built to house nurses that worked at the adjoining Eastern State Hospital. And James Blair Terrace was an interesting place. It's out on Ironbound, or it was out on Ironbound Road. It had interesting creatures. And this is actually a picture of me. It was my favorite shirt with my next door neighbor, Jerry Wass. And the one thing they would let us do is they said, you can have paint and you can paint your room. So for some mysterious reason, I painted my room yellow with glossy black trim. And it doesn't look so good 50 years later. Next slide. Okay, Colonial Echo and Flat Hat operations. A few words about that. So the newspaper probably worked somewhat similar to how it does now. It would be interesting to talk with some modern Flat Hat people, but we had staff meetings. There's George Stukenbroker right there. And so this is how assignments were handed out. You would meet with the editors, and they would decide what was to be photographed or written about in the coming week. And assignments were dished out, and if you didn't like the assignment, you wouldn't volunteer for it, and you proceeded on. What's this thing, you might ask? This is pre-computers. This is a typesetting machine, I think. So that's a bit different. So almost all the pictures I'm going to show you are black and white. Virtually all the pictures that we took for the yearbook and newspaper were black and white. On special occasions, special things, they would pay for color. Certainly not the Flat Hat, but the yearbook would pay for color. But that's about it. Next slide. So the flat hat in the yearbook worked differently. So the flat hat, as I recall, and you may contradict me on this, they would give you an assignment and you were just expected to go out and do it and come back with the pictures and give them the pictures by the time the newspaper was to be published the following week. The yearbook was somewhat different. Oftentimes the yearbook editor or section editors came around with you and encouraged you to photograph different things. This is one of my favorite pictures. This is the yearbook editor from 77, 78, Rita Soler. She called me up one morning and said, "It snowed. We got to go out and get pictures of snow for the yearbook." So away we went. This is behind the governor's palace. Next. There's Kelvin. So you can see he is hardly changed. Why did I put this in here? Not to impress you with Kelvin's past good looks, but one of the things that we did for the yearbook then, and I assume maybe you still do it for the yearbook now, is we did advertisements. And so we would go around and take pictures of the places that wanted to give us money to put in the yearbook. And so I had to go around and round up gullible people that would go out with me and pose. This is at Baskin Robbins, and I think I had to buy you the ice cream to get you to come along. And okay, next. So we would go out, take the pictures. So this is very different, I assume, from what's done today. I assume nobody works in a darkroom anymore. So we would use chemicals to make pictures. So we developed the film. They were negatives. We made contact sheets that look like this, if you've ever seen a contact sheet. And then we made prints using an enlarger, and this was the yearbook's Omega enlarger. It was a very nice little darkroom in the basement of the student union. Next. And so what we did, at least with regard to the yearbook, but I think we did this with regard to the newspaper as well, is we handed the editors the contact sheets, and they would look at them with little magnifying glasses, and they would come back and circle them, and that would indicate those were the pictures that we should print, and usually we printed them as 8x10s, 8x10 glossies. So these are two of the section editors working from contact sheets. Next. Okay, it seemed like people were really excited about my pictures of concerts at William and Mary Hall, so we're going to get to them right off the bat. And these, see, you're so eager, you jumped the gun. Contrary to early stages of advertising this event, we didn't go to dozens of these. You actually had to fight to get the, not the tickets, but to get the photographer's pass. And the way it worked was you got a pass that got you in. You could go front center, which a lot of these were taken front center, but only for about 5 or 10 minutes, and you were booted. And you could go to the back of the concert hall if you wanted, but usually, if you weren't that interested in it, you could just leave. So I've got these in chronologic order, and what I did, I had no idea when I took these pictures, but you can look these up on the internet, and all these acts have the dates of their performances. So I think these are accurate. This was February 1976. So this would have been my first concert, and I don't remember if I took these pictures for the yearbook or the newspaper. So this is Cat Stevens. How many of you know Cat Stevens? So he was you're all old. So he was a really big act right at this time, and this was quite a good concert. You probably don't. Do you know Cat Stevens? Aware, yes, okay. Next. So this was, so we can just go through these. He performed with his acoustic guitar. Next slide. And it was great. Keep going. See, these are pretty nice pictures. And he also played the piano. And I guess he still performs. And then they had this weird magic act to go with it, which I don't understand. And I don't remember it, but I have the pictures of it. Do you remember this? No, it wasn't a very good magic act. But they did have a nice curtain for their act. So So these are all at William and Mary Hall, and these were all basically filled auditoriums, so they probably had 8,000, 10,000 people at these events. And I gather they don't do that anymore here? Is that? And that is because?
No time.
Conflict with athletics, I think, and also we have a new performing arts center.
Yes. How many people can you pack into your performing arts center? Go.
This is our new director of
Only for a moment may you jump in.
I'm the director of the arts here at William & Mary, part of the new arts quarter, and I'm working with several alumni to bring these concerts back and athletics. So stay tuned for September of next year. There might be a dead theme.
Bring back Cat Stevens. Okay, I subtracted that time from my time.
At the time, the acoustics in William and Mary Hall were considered to be the best in Virginia.
Yeah,
Between Scope and Hampton Coliseum and the Richmond Coliseum, because it had a flat ceiling.
gonna say the competition back then was Scope in Norfolk and Hampton Coliseum. So the Grateful Dead actually performed here a number of times. So this was a September 1976. This was a picture of Jerry Garcia when he was alive. Next, I think that's Bob Ware. This was Donna Godchalk, who was a band member for I think about 10 years. Next, so they had great lighting. I didn't colorize these with Photoshop. This was the colors. And then the last picture, go ahead. So this is my best picture of the Grateful Dead. The William and Mary Hall was filled with smoke of a certain scent. And that's what we're looking at here. So it was, I remember it to being a very good concert. Okay, everybody likes Bruce. So since you're almost all old, you know that Bruce was really getting pretty big at this time, but he, according to sources, he hadn't made a whole lot of money up to this point yet. So yes, he was on the cover of Time and Newsweek in, I think, 75. This is in 76. And this was just an absolutely fantastic concert. How many of you were at this concert? 1, 2. Did you think it was good? Yeah, it was really good. This is Stevie Van Zandt, who has become a star on his own. I particularly like listening to him on Little Steven's Underground Garage on Sirius XM. And go ahead. So not a lot of, I think, pretty good pictures of Bruce before I was shooed away. There's Clarence Clemens when he was alive. So he was the sax player. And there's Little Steven. And yes, I even invested in some color film here. And I'm told by one of my geology colleagues that he jumped down into the audience. I don't remember that. I probably had my camera knocked on the ground, but okay, Beach Boys. So this is Beach Boys 1977. Interestingly enough, you know, Little Steven likes to comment on these things on his radio program, and one thing he says, he loves the Beach Boys, but he said they're a band that was never cool. And, you know, you can kind of see why. But you know, we had Brian Wilson. So Brian Wilson kind of went off of touring for a while, but by golly, he came to William and Mary Hall. So it's good. Yeah, so I don't know. Okay, then there was Neil Young, and this was probably my favorite concert. So Neil performed in fall of 1978, and this was actually a prelude to his album Rust Never Sleeps, the title of which he took from the Rust-Oleum paint advertisement. And this was a great concert. It was a concert that consisted of lots of tunes that no one had ever heard before, because it is a strange situation. The album that many of the tunes he played didn't get released, I looked this up, until May of the following year. So it was, many people consider that record to be one of, if not his finest, and he was playing it for us here. It was an interesting concert in that I think the first half was all acoustic, and then the second half was heavily distorted music. Next slide with the backup band. So it was really good. And they had these giant speaker sets and stuff, just like you see if you buy the album and look at the cover. See, it was really good. Next, Boston. How many of you remember Boston? Well, most people don't. So Boston is an example of a band that started out with a bang and then asymptotically went away. So their first record, at least at the time, was the best-selling first record of a band ever. But I went and looked up their sales charts, and their sales charts went. Anyway, it was an okay concert. They too had a big. Okay, so this was the last one that we went to because we graduated soon after this. So there was actually a double bill with Eric Clapton and Muddy Waters. And so Eric Clapton was the lead act, and I looked up just last week in the archival Flat Hat, and the guy that reviewed this concert didn't like Eric Clapton at all, but he liked Muddy Waters. So I don't know. I thought it was pretty good. And there's Muddy Waters. And, you know, that's pretty good. He didn't have a whole lot of years left in him. If you look up his schedule, gosh, he was on the road every day practically of the year. This was a hard-working guy. Next. Up. Okay. All right, so if you were there in 1976, you may have noticed presidents coming, and I'm not sure any presidents have come since.
Yes, Bill Clinton was here.
Okay. And, yeah, okay. So go ahead. So President Ford visited Colonial Williamsburg, I am told via my internet sources, on January 31st, 1976. Any of you work for Colonial Williamsburg?
Not in.
So the Colonial, this is sad, the Colonial Williamsburg website has 3 pages of pictures of famous people that visited Colonial Williamsburg over the years. And it includes all sorts of people, John Wayne, Perry Como, Franklin Roosevelt, and Lassie. And they don't have anything about Ford's visit. There is no picture. So if you work for Colonial Williamsburg, you should give them a picture of Jerry Ford visiting Colonial Williamsburg, because they've got Lassie ahead of Jerry Ford. He just doesn't get any respect. And if you look this up, you'll see this is the plot. There's Lassie on Dog Street, landing in Williamsburg. Lassie is accused of being a dangerous wild dog by a turkey farmer named Seth Plummer. Lassie is defended by Jebediah Wakefield, an elderly attorney, and his assistant Benjamin. You know that was a good episode. Next slide. So there's Jerry Ford. I thought if this was a younger crowd, I might have to tell you who Jerry Ford was. But, next. And, you know, it was really kind of impressive. So I don't know, he marched around a little and then keep going. I got pretty close. That was the governor of Virginia at the time, Miles Godwin. Mills, wasn't it? Well, sorry, he never introduced himself to me. Next slide. And my best picture of the visit was this guy waiting for Ford to walk by. I think that's a pretty good picture. Next slide. So there was a parade down Dog Street. Next. And people wearing odd suits. Okay, then 10 months later, there was the presidential debate. And so we had all the major news, all 3 of the major news broadcasts parking vehicles there, and so I got in one. Go ahead. It had a lot of television monitors before they shooed me out. And then I was only permitted to go in and see them setting up. So they didn't let any of our newspaper or yearbook people in to see the actual debate, sadly. So this was in Phi Beta Kappa Hall, of course. Next slide. But both Ford and Carter did come over to William and Mary Hall because of the fine acoustics. And so there's Jerry Ford. I have no idea what they talked about, but took a few pictures. Next. And there's Jimmy Carter. And there's Thomas Graves, who's president at the time. Next. And you can see it was an enthusiastic crowd. And there's some of my colleagues there. There's Dennis Parker. Remember him? Yeah. Okay, so theater. I took lots of theater pictures. Any of you in the theater business? So theater was great. I took more pictures of theater stuff than anything else. So I took theater pictures for the Flat Hat and the yearbook, but also, next, this was the faculty, the all-male faculty of the theater department at the time. So I was taking some pictures one time of some production, and this guy, Bruce McConaughey, said, "Do you want to take pictures for the theater department?" And I said, "Ooh, what's in it for me?" And he goes, "Well, you can sell cast members pictures of their performances." So I said, yes. And so I took lots and lots of pictures. So the theater department paid me to take promotional pictures, which were usually not costumed. And here I've got a pair of promo versus the actual performance. So you can see they kind of reproduced pretty well. And so I would initially take the promo pictures. They would use them advertising the production. And then they would have a performance at Phi Beta Kappa Hall. And after performance to the public, I would be, everybody was forced to stay and wait for me to take their picture. And of course, they were posed as per what the director wanted pictures of. So this is King Lear. Anybody know who this guy is? Yeah. So this is a guy named Arnold Moss. And Arnold Moss was a famous Shakespearean actor who was spending a semester in residence at William and Mary. And does anybody know why he's as famous as he is amongst our crowd? Go ahead. He was on a Star Trek episode. And one of my geology colleagues, Roger Buck, who when I was digitizing these pictures, I found out, oh, there's Roger Buck in the background. He said he joined this production just to be with Arnold Moss because Arnold Moss had been in his favorite Star Trek episode, which was the traveling Shakespearean company episode. I'm sure most of you remember it. Next. Okay, so we can just go through these. Here's Medieval Christmas. They wore tights in Rosencrantz and Guildenstern. Uncle Vanya had just wondrous sets, as I recall, really great. Wojciech, I think it's pronounced. I don't remember that. Clouds, this was a production that had females in skimpy costumes, which seemed like a good idea to me. Carousel, next. Constant Wife, and Guys and Dolls, and Damn Yankees. And Damn Yankees was really pretty cool because they had really neat lighting and dance numbers and the like. So there were also, and I don't know if they still do this or not, theater people back there. Do you still have Backdrop Club? No, see, that's why having an archival record of things like this is important. So there were a lot of other theatrical productions with lots fewer people that were not mainline productions. So next, Director's Workshop. Do you have Director's Workshop? No. Premier Theater. Do you have? What have you got? Oh dear. Sinfonicron? Okay. Okay, quick picture, failed attempt at the world's longest banana split. Did anybody participate in this? It failed. And I don't know why it failed, but anyway. Greeks, I took lots and lots of Greeks pictures for the yearbook primarily. This was something called Derby Day. Is there still a Derby Day? I have no idea what it was about. I was not a member of a Greek society, but so I had to go around and take pictures of fraternities and sororities for the yearbook, and I have to say, my recollection of fraternity photography consisted basically of going to parties where people were drinking a lot. And so this is one of the tamer pictures of a fraternity. And this is what they wanted in the yearbook. What class were you in? What class were you in? What class?
I'm 76, and I think those guys would be 77.
Oh. Okay, next. So sororities were a lot more fun because they didn't sit around drinking all the time. They did get dressed up. So this was a Kappa Kappa Gamma thing, and this was just some other, what's the thing called, the beginning of the year? Yeah. And then you got to pose these, so you had to take group pictures for the yearbook. This was one of the cleverer ones. What happened here? Jeez, you're getting too excited. So notice they're in a delta shape. This must be tri-delt, right? Okay. Now you can go. The fraternities were not usually so clever, but this was actually not a bad one. This was down by Lake Matoka, and so I kind of like this one. Next, sports. So this is interesting. So you can see this men's basketball game here with the crowd filling William and Mary Hall. And then you can see the women's basketball team where nobody was there. And this is kind of a historical interest because Title IX was signed into law in 1972, and Title IX had not yet had much of an impact, at least our freshman year. So I think there was no such thing as scholarship female athletes when we were freshmen, but they may have started that up junior or senior year. It would be interesting to know. So yes, much less attention was paid to women's sports. Football, interesting question. What is William and Mary now? Is it Division 1A or? Is that good? Okay. Anyway, well, there's a football picture. So if you want better sports pictures, get Bob to digitize his picture. So here's some crowd pictures. It's okay. This guy went to graduate school with me at Stony Brook. It's Dave Harris. I think we had a really good field hockey team back then. Next. I think our lacrosse team was pretty good. We had really good women's tennis, even though they weren't getting paid. And I think we had pretty good soccer back then. Do we still have pretty good soccer? Okay, next. Okay, Charter Day, 1979. We're up to 32 minutes, so we're in the danger. So this was a big deal. At the time, it was some members of the athletics, you're going to comment on this. So athletics was not super duper big, and they wanted to advance, I guess, the football team to the top division, and students weren't too enthusiastic about this. So there were. What's that?
They wanted to remain.
Oh, I don't remember the details.
3,000 seat stadium.
Oh, yeah.
In Division 1A.
Thank you for clarifying that.
My pottery factories wrote the right to check for it. But there was a lot of opposition, as you've heard.
So here's the opposition, and the opposition came out on a really cold day, which was also Charter Day. So inside, Charter Day festivities were going on with respectable people. And outside on the snow, there was a lot of protest. Next. So there we are outside freezing. It was really cold that day. That's all I remember. But inside you had the president of William and Mary, and this was William Brennan, one of the Supreme Court. Sorry? Oh, sorry. Yeah, well, we had Supreme Court justices all the time here. Okay, some homecoming and other festivities. That was Governor Dalton, so I think his daughter was a member of the class of '79, so of course he had to come and be in the parade. Next. It looks like they were marching down Jamestown Road in this picture, because this looks like Phi Beta Kappa. That is the JBT float with Steve Benham, a geology professor. Next. And do you still have homecoming queens? So it's kind of a strange thing. So you had this, somehow some female became a homecoming queen, and some guy had to kind of stand off to the side and be out of focus in the pictures. And then the president of the college put a crown on, and the president's wife held a bouquet. Next. And so here's another one. You can see it's a rather silly headpiece. And then by our senior year, I think instead of having the useless guy standing to the side, the fathers of the homecoming queens got to participate. So that's what that's a picture of. And this is just a bunch of guys marching around, the marching band. You can see them pondering the imponderables of the game going on. For our homecoming, you also had the homecoming band. This guy was, his name was Chuck Kiefer, and he was a photographer, and he was one of the people who helped me get into the flat hat. So I owe a lot to him. He was a really nice guy. Okay, a few geology pictures for the geology folk here. So we used to haul a ladder to the cliffs off of King's Mill and pull bivalves, Miocene bivalves. Is that right? That's me up there. Yeah. It was tied, the top of the ladder was tied to the back of the car. Yeah. This is Bruce Goodwin, one of the founding members of the Department of Geology. Next. And you got to go to some scenic looking places. This is the Falls of the James. Next. And we always ended our academic year with a usually 2-week field trip somewhere. So this was a 2-week field trip to New England and Nova Scotia. And so this is us looking at stuff on Cape Cod. So it is. So it's really wild. As a professor, you would never even imagine doing what they were doing there. Driving private cars, and it was discovered that many of the members didn't have any insurance. And so first day out, a person broke their leg. First day out, the next year's field trip, this was to the Grand Canyon, floating down the Grand Canyon. This person broke her leg. She did have insurance because they learned something the previous year. Okay, we're almost done. This is good. So does it ever get cold enough to play ice hockey on Crimdale? Well, there you go. Proof of global warming. Next slide. Snow could be pretty impressive. I just went out and took lots of snow pictures, building a snow person.
That's a good one.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty good picture. Okay. And then to finish off, we've got 2 minutes left. Do you know where that is? It's not, but it's the Capitol building, so you're close. So that's the cupola of this. That's a pretty good picture, too. So I took a few good pictures. That's Crimdell at night. And that's Crimdell with infrared film. And that's from up top of the Capitol building, shooting a picture back towards the Wren building. And I think that's it. We made it. Incredible. I am so happy we got through all of them. I can answer any question, especially about cosmochemistry, if you want to know something about cosmochemistry.
I don't have a question, I have a comment. Your picture of Eric Clapton,
Uh-huh.
in 1965, 1906 timeframe, he played in a group called the Yardbirds.
Oh, yeah, sure.
And I played in a group that played before they played at the Virginia Beach Dome as an opening act. And he wanted to borrow my amplifier because it was big and it had big speakers. And he was practicing that new sound. He distorted everything.
Uh-huh.
So he blew my amplifier up.
You know,
And-
it was a very silent concert. It was a very silent concert in 1979.
Oh,
No
yeah.
doubt because
Well-
his amplifier was your amplifier.
Yeah. No, they actually paid me for it.
Oh.
And I bought a new amplifier. But that's the closest. And we had a conversation, a couple of conversations, but that's it.
So was he any good?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. The Yardbirds, yeah, I've got their album. They were I thought they were good for the times. So. What was your group? Pop Tops. And we played alongside Bill Dillon and Rondell's. From time to time, we would play at the Peppermint Beach Club with them. And so, yeah, I knew some of those people.
Thank you. Well, the flat hat reporter didn't like him. No, but you can look it up. Yeah, but I didn't memorize this.
I've got a question. What kind of camera were you using? Nikon, Leica, what?
Thank you for asking that. I used high-grade equipment. I had a Nikon F and a Nikon F2. So I was a Nikon person. Bob was a Canon person. A Canon person. And a lot of photoshopping, by the way, to get rid of scratches and dust and stuff.
So are you still photographing things?
Not much. You know, I do it as part of my job sometimes, but I'm certainly not a professional photographer.
Oh, I would certainly disagree with that.
Well, nobody's paying me now.
Do you have any Cleve Francis pictures?
No,
No,
sorry.
because he was here in the 70s. Maybe before you, though.
Could be. Don't know. Lots of people claim to have been these years. How many of you were here between 75 and 79? Wow, look at all these people. Huh. That's good. Did any of you show up in these pictures? Were you in
I was
there?
in a picture with George Studebaker.
Good.
Early on, the
Good.
one we were standing at the easel where the page is being laid out. We were
Yeah.
pointing at something. We're probably posed. You probably told us. to
So
point
you
at
should go away pleased.
something. And I've texted the picture to George. I'm waiting for a reply.
Tell him he can have all 2,800.
Well, I will send him the link when you send it to me.
You send me an email,
I
and
will.
I'll send you the link.
Could you put the link back up there again? Is that possible?
It's not a link, it's my email address, but you can put it up.
I'm curious about, you say you actually did the digitization of your photographs, which is amazing. That's a lot of work. Can you talk a little bit about that process?
It's very slow. Got a mic.
Usually people give us their photographs and say, can you do this for me? And so I'm amazed that you did it and gave us the files, which is amazing. Thank you. But I'd love to hear more about like what kind of equipment did you have? How did you go about?
So I bought a Nikon digitizer, a high quality digitizer about 15 years ago that of course they don't support anymore. And so every time Microsoft changes its software, it says, ooh, we don't have a driver for this anymore, but I've got a tech guy who can fix it for me, so I can still do it. And yeah, you know, some of these are 50 years old, so it's like digitizing pictures almost from the Civil War. A lot of, they were not always treated so well, so lots of dust, scratches, and I made all of them go away with Photoshop. But if you find you have a picture, well, first of all, these are JPEGs, so you can do anything you want with the JPEG in Photoshop or whatever program you use. But if you want me to make it better, I've gotten a lot better with Photoshop towards the end of this sequence. So, you know, if you really want me to work on it, I will, if you've got a special picture.
What was your favorite assignment?
My favorite, oh, how can you pick your favorite child? But I've only got one child, so I don't have that problem. I don't know. I liked the concerts. They were really good. I think I wasn't very good at sports. I think Bob did a much better job at sports, so he needs to come back and show you, what, 50 years of William and Mary sports, because that's what you've got, right? And of course, I always enjoyed the geology field trips. So they're, if you download the 2,800 pictures, you can discard, of course, whatever you are not interested in. But I've got some pretty nice scenic pictures in the geology folder, so you should at least give them a quick look. Kelvin.
Are there any pictures of the monkeys in the showers at Hunt Hall?
So Hunt Hall, you know, how many of you know where Hunt Hall is? Okay, so Hunt Hall, they seem to have put a lot of eclectic people in Hunt Hall my freshman year. Let us just say that. And in fact, huh? No, Hunt was weirder and got into more trouble. Actually, you know, about a year or two later, about half the people that were on our floor were no longer students at William and Mary. So some people had a lot more fun than they probably should have. By the way, I got to tell you, I won't mention names. The guy hanging naked out the window went on to become a university president. I'm not making this up. I won't say.
Back to the monkeys.
Oh, yeah, we had lots of fun. We convinced our area coordinator that the floor, maybe the whole dorm, had bought some monkeys at Woolworth or something like that, because they did sell monkeys back in there. You could go and buy yourself a monkey. And that somebody from the administration took our monkeys, so we put up protest signs and have lists of people signing our protests. Those were the good old days. Yes, Bob?
Just a comment on some of the early photos, the one of the roads with the ruler and stuff that ended up in the
Water
cloud.
bugs, not roaches.
Whatever. Same difference. Sam Sadler still fondly remembers coming out and having a talk with us about those.
So JBT was kind of a failed experiment. Did any of you live at JBT? Oh, the hands go up rapidly. It was, you know, sold as kind of having a country club-like atmosphere. It did have tennis courts. Its heating system was lacking, particularly our first year out there, where we had a really, really cold winter, and the heating system of the two buildings were completely inadequate. And so you know, you got frost on the walls in the rooms. But
But the one nice thing is, if you lived at JBT, even though you weren't a senior, you could have a car.
if you had a car. Yeah, there were also a lot of single rooms, so I always had a single room at JBT. And, you know, a lot of good people, a lot of good friends out there. But it's pretty remote from campus, and you always had to take a bus. Even if you had a car, you have to park it somewhere. And even then, parking was a problem. Now, parking, boy, it's hard to park around here. But I harbor no bitter feelings about it. And then my senior year, we lived in Old Dominion, which I gather is being renovated again. And it was renovated, I don't know, it was renovated right before we moved into it. So it had fully functioning air conditioning. So it was pretty nice. It's kind of hard to believe that Hunt Hall is still a viable dormitory. That's got to be, you know, closing in on 100 years old, right?
I think it's past 100.
Yeah.
It was originally the furnace.
Yeah.
So it had an elevator.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Which we weren't allowed to do.
No. Sometimes you could get the door open, though. Yeah, I liked living in Hunt Hall. Hunt Hall, if you don't know, is kind of, North Boundary Road, kind of behind the student center.
It's the very edge of the campus.
Yes. Yes. We had people that threw water out onto cars passing by. You never did that.
Hi.
Heaven forbid.
I live in Hunt, so if anybody has questions, let me know.
How is it? How is it?
I like it a lot. I got a single my first year. So
What floor are you on?
First floor.
Oh, that's no good.
But yeah, it's pretty good. I like it a lot. But they're gonna tear it down in
No.
like a year.
Oh, that's sad.
Along with the
They
campus
should
center.
invite, you're a dean, you can get them to do this. They need to invite back Hunt Hall people from over the years.
Yeah, it's a great.
Yeah.
That was it. Thank you.
I think they're tired.
Last call for questions. Don't be shy.
Going once, going twice, gone.
Thank you, Rich. That was wonderful. And I'm so glad we got it on video so it can live. Does anybody in Special Collections is there any comment about where we're at in the process of making them accessible? They hate it when I ask questions like this. But do we know?
I talked with Michael, our digital archivist, and they are in our digital collections platform. So I was thinking I would find the URL after this is over.
Wonderful. So it is nice to know you don't have to spend 45 minutes downloading from his website. I mean, it's nice to know that
No, you
they're
can
here.
spend 45 minutes downloading it from the archive.
Yeah, but that saves you a little time. You don't have to
Doesn't save
Yeah.
time. No, no, it's in a box account, so I don't
Yeah,
see it. You
yeah.
just download it. You can do it whenever you want.
Okay. Yeah, great. Thank you so much, everybody. Please enjoy refreshments and good company.